breaches again, so you are careful to avoid them. So basically the context is you are now in project preparation about to start writing a research review. A 3-page, from what I understand, research review based on something like 10 papers that you have to read. Following that, you're going to have to make a plan for your dissertation, and I think there's some more assessment in this module. The plan is what guides the MSc project. And I'll try and comment on the distinction between what you have to write for the research review. I'm sure Nick Green has covered this, but there is an issue here. You have to write a research review now, and how does that relate to what you have to do for your dissertation? They should be quite different in nature. So I guess best to start at the beginning. I'll be going through all these slides. Some of them are kind of very fast, if at all, and some of them I've spent quite a lot of time on. It's important that if you feel I've not explained it properly or you want more information on a particular thing, you tell me at that point. There will be discussion sessions next week that Nick is going to organize based on this lecture. But I'd like to have a discussion also here, given that you've taken the trouble to come for the second time to the same lecture. So, just quickly, why is it important? Why do we care about academic integrity? And one reason is that it's much easier these days to do things wrong because you have all this information available to you. So, it's important to understand that you have to respect other people's work and acknowledge it in the right way, and be responsible for what you claim is your own work. Okay? For us, it's important. Why do we care? We care for various reasons. Because we want, basically, from your point of view, we want to give you a mark that fairly assesses your knowledge and understanding, and we want to be fair to all of you. We don't want to give someone else a better mark if they don't deserve it. I'm not going to talk too much about the regulations now, but I encourage you all, if you haven't seen the regulations yet, you really should have had a look at, the regulations and have a look at the process that we have in place to ensure that academic integrity is followed. So basically, to summarize our expectations, we want you to tell us exactly what your own work and what other people's work, and be honest about that. And we want you to follow ethical conventions of your discipline. You probably will hear more about that, but just to say that ethics is an important aspect, maybe an important aspect of your dissertation. So anything that has an ethical side, that needs ethical approval, you have to discuss carefully with your supervisors. Things like using questionnaires to evaluate your dissertation, or using people in any form as part of your project needs ethical approval, and that needs to be done in advance. Okay, and now I move to a slide where I want to spend a bit more time on, because basically this summarizes the main. Yes?
Understand if you involve people in your project and it requires ethical approval, what does it mean?
It means if you're going to ask people to fill in questionnaires, evaluate a software you've written, or evaluate an aspect of your project, that will require ethical approval. Questionnaires are basic.
What does it mean? Exactly, what does it mean?
It means you have to put in an application form to the DCS Ethics Committee, that's where you have to describe exactly how you're going to use people or whatever. In what form you have to provide a questionnaire, you're going to use and to explain how you're going to anonymize the data that you're going to gather. This is just an example. If you're going to use questionnaires, how are you going to make sure that data protection is ensured? How are you going to anonymize the output of the questionnaire? You have to give details that the ethics committee looks at and says, yes, this is fine, you can carry this data analysis as a question. If it's a questionnaire.
And if it's not?
If it's not approved, they'll come back to you with recommendations on how to change it. And if you don't get approval, then you can't use that process to evaluate your project. So it's important that you do it timely so that if they come back to you, you still have time to make adjustments. Okay? So at the beginning of your project, you'll have a discussion with your supervisor on how you're going to evaluate the results. Likely the evaluation will be what towards the end of the project, but already at the beginning you have to cite that. Any more? Okay, so this slide, I got my pointer. This slide lists the main academic integrity breaches, plagiarism, collusion, recycling are the three that I've already seen from this cohort, probably not the people here, but from this year's semester students that I want to go through in detail. So plagiarism is, in short, passing someone else's work as your own. And that's a very broad concept that maybe some of you don't fully grasp. It means passing on someone else's work as your own by copying and pasting text from papers you're reading, including them in your report, and not making it clear that it's someone else's work. You should already know how to do that. So how do you make clear that you're using someone else's work? You put them in your report. References. Is that it? So I'm copying and pasting this paragraph. I'm citing it. I'm adding a citation at the end of the paragraph. Is that all I need to do to be alright? No. What else?
Rephrase it, quote it.
Yes, either rephrase it or quote it. So rephrasing is paraphrasing. Paraphrasing. And I'll talk. Okay, let's talk about it now. Actually, so rephrasing is if you don't want to take someone else's words and put them in your report, it's not a good thing to do for big chunks of text, and it's really something you should avoid most of the time. Most of the time you should be paraphrasing, which is similar to rephrasing, but what is paraphrasing? It's synthesizing what you read from other people's work, writing it in a more concise way, ideally, in your own words, rather than just rephrasing as replacing some words by synonyms, changing around the words, so it's not exactly the same text. So paraphrasing ideally amounts to really doing some thinking before presenting this information you've read from a source in your own words. So that's paraphrasing, and that's what you have to do in the process of writing your own report. I would say all the time you should refrain from using quotes. You're fine with using quotes if it's a sentence that some famous person has said and you want to present exactly in that shape, and then putting the quote there, you're acknowledging it's not your own words, and then you give a citation to say this is where it comes from, this is where that quote comes from. Most of the time you should be paraphrasing other people's work and adding a citation to identify where that comes from. And there is a lot to say about citations. Citations should not just be added at the beginning of or end of a section. They should be added in places that make it clear to the reader that it's this paragraph or this sentence, or what you write in that paragraph is going to hint to the reader about the placing of the citation is going to give an indication of this citation, is it there because it's the whole section that I've taken from that paper? No, it's there because what I've just spoken about, or what I'm in the process of talking about, comes from that particular source. So it's important to cite, but it's important to use these citations in the right places to give enough information to the reader what the citations from where. So plagiarism is not doing this. It's either you copy text verbatim from another paper, even if you add a citation, if it's copy verbatim, it's plagiarism. It may be due to your misunderstanding of what you're supposed to do, but we've already assumed in semester 1 that you know that you're not supposed to do that. And in some of the cases I've had academic people have just taken, have written reports that just take chunks of text from various papers and paste them together, add some citations there, and it doesn't tell us anything about whether you understand that, and it doesn't give credit to the people who wrote that text. So that's copying. Also paraphrasing without acknowledging with a citation is another Is that clear so far? So this is the most common academic integrity breach I see, but there are more instances of plagiarism. Can you think of any other that apply to your work? So it's not just words that you might be taking or ideas from other people's work. It can be code, it can be design. I think we've discussed this kind of in the previous lecture as open source code. Is it right for you to take it? It's open source and include it in the code you submit as part of your assignment. It's not right unless it's acknowledged. So again, you have to make it clear that this code that you submitted is not your own. You wrote more code based on that, and that is the additional code that we will give marks for. So be very careful with code, especially for dissertations. Last year's cohort, we had a lot of cases where this use of especially open source code was misunderstood, and we ended up with people having to rewrite their dissertation and end up with a mark of 60 maximum because of not acknowledging the use of third-party code. So I guess on the electronic side, it applies to design that you use, if you use any libraries, existing libraries, always, and it's fine to use those. Of course, discuss it with your supervisor. It's fine to reuse other people's work, design code in certain contexts, as long as you acknowledge it. Okay? Questions here? How do you acknowledge it? So you just write in one of your sections where you describe the code. I use some open source code. That's enough. It's not, again, you have to tell me exactly where it came from. You have to tell me exactly which code it is. What is the name of the file, what is the design, and so on.
Everything about the library, the source file, then we can use it.
It's not using libraries, it's kind of including it as part of your submission. Also, if you use libraries, yes, you have to, depends how you use them. You can include it in your code, I don't know, whatever code you develop. If you submit that code as part of your, when you submit a dissertation, you submit a report and all the code that you develop. And for computer science, that code needs to be runnable, so in order to make it runnable, you may have to include certain libraries you use. If you do that, then you have to identify where those libraries files that you submitted come from and which are the ones that you haven't written yourself. It could be even more complicated. It could be that you take some existing code and you modify it. Again, you have to tell us that you've done that. Just because you've done some modifications to it, you're not entitled to claim your own code. Okay? I've seen one case last year where it was perfectly reasonable for the students to take some existing libraries and modify them, but they forgot to mention that they based it on some existing code. And again, that resulted in a 50% mark. So it's how you use other people's work, whether you just use it or modify it, explain how you've done it, explain each part of it. It's a library. Yeah?
What's the best place to acknowledge that? Do you have it at the top of the source code, or do you have a text file along with the source code?
I think that the more places you acknowledge it, the better. So obvious places would be when you submit any piece of any assignment, there's a tick box, this is all my own work, except. So already at the point of submission, which a lot of you do in a hurry with all this, just before the deadline for the assignment, and you don't really think about it. But that's the first thing where we look, first place where we look. So there that should be a mention, and then we will make sure we carefully watch in the report, or in the case of the project, it would be the report, for details, even more details of how you use whatever parts that you've taken from whatever code, design you've taken. So I would probably include something in the introduction of the dissertation is that the dissertation we're talking about, as well as in the section when you describe that code. Okay? So, 3 obvious places to do it.
Which is not right by ourselves, which is
Yes.
that's very complicated in large systems. It requires a lot of software from some other software. But each file we should declare.
As long as you don't include those files in the code you submit, you can just talk about which libraries you've used.
I don't need to submit all of the code.
Well, sometimes you do because that code won't run unless you include all these special libraries. Yeah. So if you have to include anything that's not your own in your submission,
So do we need to upload a runnable application?
this is to be discussed with your supervisor. The project I'm supervising, I expect to be able to run that code. Okay? So if you have to submit anything that's not yours, you just tell us where it comes from and tell us the files. Put them in a special directory, a major directory. It's not that big a deal. Any more questions? There'll be more, maybe, on plagiarism of the data. So let's just quickly talk about collusion. Again, this is something very common that unfortunately I see. I think I've had 4 or 5 cases already from you this year. What is collusion? It's going beyond collaboration on an individual piece of work. It's discussing what the assignment requires you to submit in too much detail and basically arriving at a solution, not individually but as a group or a pair. Okay? And just to warn you again, this is because of quite a serious breach of academic integrity. It's qualified as major, so if you do this, you're going to end up with your marks for that assignment being either 0 or substantially reduced. So just to warn you again, that how to avoid this is to not do assignments together if they're individual assignments. And if you just discuss the requirements of the assignment, it makes sense to understand what the requirements are by discussing them. We don't want you to go beyond that and think about how to solve it together. And I know it's difficult because you learn from this process, but you have to be very careful where you stop with these discussions. And use common sense when you ask for advice and also when you give advice. It's the same kind of reach. You decide this is now not collaboration anymore, and this is alluding on this particular piece of work. And just to say, you are not supposed to collaborate. You're supposed to just discuss high-level requirements if it's an individual assignment. Questions here? So sitting by each other and doing the assignment together and doing maybe your own code, but having the same design decisions made because it's not alone solving the question of doing the assignment is inappropriate. Okay, you should be thinking on your own, doing it on your own. Okay, and I'm going to jump. So cheating is something hopefully clear to everyone. This is not something to be done. You don't want to pass as your own work something that's not your own, something that someone else did for you, and you don't want to be cheating in an exam by using whatever notes, taking a solution and so on. Similarly, falsification applies to the dissertation in particular, where you will be asked to do some kind of analysis, evaluation of the project, maybe by a questionnaire, maybe by running simulations. Don't falsify your data because it's easily picked up by the examiners and it gets you into very much trouble. So cheating, falsification are very, very major breaches. We don't see them very often, but just to be aware. Finally, recycling, again, in the context context where you have to write now a research review, followed by a dissertation over the summer. Now, I hope everyone understands from previous lectures on this what's the connection between the two. The purpose of the research review is to give you a broad overview of an area, okay? And it's supposed to inform the decision on a dissertation topic. So to some extent, the decision has been made because you are asked now to choose a topic, but that topic is still quite broad. So research review is supposed to give you a high-level overview of this area that's going to inform your project. So, question. Having written this research review, three-page research review, is it reasonable that you include it as part of your background section, literature review section of your dissertation?
No, because it's easy recycling.
It is recycling, yes. Many people do it, you are not supposed to do it. Now then you come and tell me, but I know all this, I've researched this, I know all this, why can't I just include it there? You can't, because then you will be getting the same mark, you will be getting the mark for the same piece of work twice. However, you are more than entitled, and we are hoping that you're going to use the knowledge that you've gained through writing this research review when writing your background section of the dissertation. So how should the two be related? The first one should be high level, not getting into very specific details of the approach in your summarizing, but more comparing at a high level what different approaches can do, and this depends on your topic. Whereas the background should go into a lot more detail of these approaches. So you should, and this should already automatically prevent reusing text, because you're writing two different pieces of work. One is very high level, and one is very detailed, because now you really need to understand these areas in detail in order to proceed with the project. So I hope that makes sense. So we don't really expect to see a match between what you submitted for the research review and what you submit as part of your dissertation. Okay? Recycling goes beyond this, so you're not supposed to recycle any of your coursework into the dissertation or into any other piece of coursework, again, because we don't want to give you the same mark twice, or just one piece of work. Okay, I'm going to skip some of these and get to remind you that whatever brief we see from you now is going to be later, and the implications are quite severe. You will end up with a maximum of 50% mark for that piece of work. You may end up with some of the orange things over there. We've seen quite rarely, but we have seen. So I'm going to try to talk a bit more about how to write this research review that you have to write, how to write, especially the background section of the dissertation, which is where we see that if you don't, maybe if you're not that skilled at writing in English, it's very easy and very dangerous to think, well, I can't really write this in my own words very well, so I'm going to take it from as it is and just change it a little bit. So, okay, again, what counts as plagiarism? Is it a copy-paste? That's plagiarism. If you use ideas without citing, that's plagiarism. Whether they are written, whether those ideas are written in a paper or they come from discussion. Or the first one, the latter one is difficult to detect, but anything that you take as a summary, you have to tell us. Code, including open source code, or having had help on writing something, often using a bit of code and not acknowledging it, they're all plagiarism. And it's these four things, when you write a technical report or review your dissertation, that you have to bear in mind. what you always do, and that should be accompanied by citing both of them. If it happens that you quote, and all the paraphrasing that you do should be accompanied by citation. Place in the right places to tell us exactly this is from there, and then whenever you give a citation, make sure that at the end in your bibliography you have, if you use numbers, you make sure that that number is related to all the information required to get to the source, not just I don't know, book series and the title, but with all the information we need to go and get back, fetch back, resource, and see what you've been reading. Another point about bibliography is people tend to include bibliography in the bibliography things they haven't really read. Okay? So you write a research review, you just have to, well, you have to cite some papers or something like that. But you decided, I've actually found this review, this paper which reviews the area I'm interested in. I'm just going to read that paper and take all the references from that paper and include them in mine because they are related and because the way that paper mentions them, I can also mention them the same way. That's not right. Okay? So, and actually it counts as plagiarism if you take a single paper and make it into your research review. You've taken too much from one source, you've not really done much thinking. All the structure that is now in your review comes from, and all the section blending or structuring of the paragraph comes from that source. You've not really contributed much there. So, basing your review on a single paper or a couple of papers, and taking references from those papers and including them in your bibliography is wrong. It gets picked up because things will pick up that all of this material comes from a single source, and then we will look at your references and see that you've not picked up to them. So something again to be avoided. That makes sense? Whenever you include something in a bibliography, make sure you've read that thing to certain degrees. Yeah, don't just read the abstract. Reading the abstract is usually not enough. Have a look at relevant sections in that paper that you, there's material that you actually talk about. Make sure you understand what's there before you write about it. Okay, this is just to say, I think you've seen this before, quotes should be limited and short, not like the quote at the end, that's not an appropriate quote. You can write that kind of information in your own words. Paraphrase all the time. I'm kind of going quickly because I want to leave some more time for questions at the end. So really the message is think about paraphrasing, and if it's hard for you, just work hard at it. We don't care about your English so much, but we care that you understand what you're writing about. And I think I've explained, so when I teach someone who's actually done very poor paraphrasing or no paraphrasing, what I tell them to, how I tell them to improve is as follows. You've got all these papers you have to write about. How do you go about it? You read one and then immediately kind of look at the paper and try and write down some ideas from that paper. With the paper on the side, it's quite dangerous because you are going to end up with taking almost phrases from that paper into your writing them in your review. So the way to go about it is read it and read the sections that are relevant once or twice. If you think about it, read it again, put it aside, and write what you remember from that paper. And this is not always going to work because you will have definitions you want to include. By the way, with things like definitions or formulas or even algorithms that you want to include, this does not apply. For those kinds of things, it's fine to give it as it is. This is a definition. Just tell me or tell the reader, it's a definition, it comes from there, and it's fine to have it editable or some formula. Just make sure you don't have too many of these. We don't want to end up with a literature review that's just definitions taken from a book, because that isn't showing understanding. Be selective when you choose what to give as definitions, algorithms, formulas. Don't give more than needed. So this is the process of thinking, having read something, what exactly do I need to include, synthesizing and just giving information needed. And then when you write yourself, put the source aside as much as you can and write in your own words. And this is going to help you understand more what you're writing about. Ideally, read a few papers a few times or the relevant parts, and then think about also how they are related, how do they compare, and summarize them individually, and then do some kind of analysis of your own, which you will have to do both for the research review. To get a good mark for the research review, we are expecting you to not just say, this is what these people have done and this is what these people have done in your own words. We expect you to compare them, and we expect you to say what's missing maybe, based on what you've been reading, what you think is maybe not right, what can be improved. So the more thinking you do, the better your review or whatever you're writing. Again, try not to have the papers directly in front of you when you write this, as much as you can. So if you take too much from one source, or if you just copy-paste, and please don't do this because it's so easy to see, copy-paste and rewrite isn't acceptable. And then at the end, try and comment and evaluate if you're own. Even if it's wrong, even if it's not completely right, we see that you've thought about it, and that's better than not giving an indication that you've thought about it. That's what we see, again, in drawing different types of copy-paste. I'm not sure whether you can distinguish the color versus black there, but there's kind of interleaving between colored bits and non-colored bits. The colored bits are taken from somewhere else. In this case, it's just been rewriting a few words, replacing by synonyms. It's very obvious to see. Notes are important, especially for the dissertation where you're doing this over 3 months. And you're reading now and writing in a couple of months, I would advise against that. I would advise you to whatever you think is going to be useful and should go in your report, record it as possibly, ideally write it down at the time of reading it, postponing it. But if you're not doing that, whatever notes you're taking, electronic, presumably, make sure you don't copy-paste in your notes. You have to do that, make sure you record it so that later when you come after a couple of months, you have to use your notes, make sure what you copy-pasted, because you are in a rush, doesn't end up in the dissertation. That's going to be a problem. So it's important to take notes properly and use them properly. Remember, again, the important thing here is to be consistent in the way you cite, to be consistent in the way you write in bibliography. But the crucial thing is to be specific with the citations. Make sure you put them in the right places and enough of them, not just one to tell us this whole section maybe comes from that paper. It's not really told us. I think I'm almost done. So figures, again, we end up with a lot of reports, dissertations, where you have we see figures that we know they are not your own, but we just forgot to add a citation there, and that's good. So it's all right to include figures that come from somewhere else, give the citation, tell us. Otherwise, we assume that everything that has enough citation is your own, and we might query you on that in the presentation. We don't see the report at that point. So, We will assume that if there is no citation, it's yours. Make sure it's really. I think this is probably covers how to write bibliography, what sort of tools to use to write your review, your dissertation. I will give these slides were already sent to you. It's exactly the same set of slides that I sent to you in November. I give them to me to put them on the project preparation website as well. So the slides I skipped, if you're one of the few who haven't been to this lecture in November, you can have a look. But I think I've covered the key information. Actually, there's one further important thing that may or may not have got to you at this point. So for the research review, you now have this interim submission that was announced a couple of days ago. Okay, so you have to submit a research review. Is it first week after Easter? That's correct?
That's the
Okay.
final submission, yes.
The final. And the reason that we moved after Easter, I think it was originally before, is to allow for this interim submission, which is a really good and useful way for you to get some feedback on how you're doing with academic integrity with no penalty. Okay? So the interim submission is kind of additional training for you on getting things right. And the idea is you submit a draft, and the better this draft is, the closer it is to the final, the more it's going to be beneficial to you. You submit a draft of your research review that is going to be passed through Turnitin, which is the plagiarism detection thing we are using. The output of that is going to go to your supervisor, and the draft will be used by you and the supervisor to discuss how to improve for the final submission on several aspects, including the academic integrity, if there are issues such as this. We are not going to take action on the interim submission, but that's not to say do that and see what you can get away with, because it's not going to work. You really want to learn. You should try and do your best for the interim submission. Hopefully they're not going to see that, but if there are any issues that will be discussed with the supervisor in time for you to make changes in the final submission. I'm not planning to give you the Turnitin report, just the supervisor, and you will have a chance to look at it and see how you're doing. And the draft will hopefully, so you should have a meeting with your supervisor following the interim submission where you discuss the draft per se, not just the academic integrity, but how to improve it for the final submission. Again, the more work you do for the interim submission, the more likely it is that you're going to be fine and get a good mark because you get feedback in time from the supervisor for the final submission. Okay. I'm not sure there is no assessment. It's almost time to stop, and I want to take any questions that you have. Is there anything that I haven't covered that I should have? I can think of one, so maybe moving from the review to the plan. All that I've been talking about applies to the plan. Don't feel that in the plan you don't have to give references. Yeah? So the plan is a 1 or 2 page, whatever, document that you have to submit later on. The rules apply to that as well. Don't think that because it's a plan you don't have to follow the same standards. Yeah?
How long does the ethical approval usually take? Is it something we have to submit a few days in advance, weeks in advance, months in advance?
I think you should submit as early as you should at the beginning of the project, in the first week or 2, ideally. It can take a week. I don't know exactly what the timeline is. Your supervisor may be able to tell you. It may take a week, I think. Any more questions? So I didn't have a group work, I'm just looking to look at now. Have a calibration and solution. I think as part of this module we already have training on writing, just that there are some additional links, a lot of links there, in case you need more help. The library has been any more questions? Okay, so